Dysentery and constipation, they are two different things. They are very uncomfortable. You have problem if you have dysentery or constipation. In the month of Ramadan, you see the fasting, dry fasting for over 14 hours. In this month, we usually have problem with constipation and sometimes dysentery. So here, what is the reason? The bile salt is the most important thing regarding dysentery and constipation. If you have excess bile salt in small intestines, what happens? Dysentery takes place, loose motion, even in bad situation, diarrhea, and there you have food poison, maybe infection. So infection usually in small intestines because of loose motion, the watery stool, you see. So if you have excess bile salt in small intestines, it sprinkles water, and that's how the dysentery takes place. On the other hand, if you have very little bile salt, then constipation takes place, especially because you have oily food in the month of Ramadan. You have burnt oil that turns into visceral fat, trans fat. You have fast food that brings trans fat. The oil is burnt and it becomes fat, and this is called trans fat. This is the most dangerous fat. It doesn't go away. It disturbs your stomach, it disturbs your health. So visceral fat, very bad. That doesn't melt away. It's really very bad for diabetes and other diseases. And trans fat, as I said, fast food, to make it last for a long period of time, what's done, oil has been burned, fermented into fat, and it is trans fat. Biscuits don't get rotten, they last for long. That's because of trans fat, as oil has been burnt, fermented into trans fat. And subcutaneous fat is not so harmful. In your belly you have subcutaneous fat. It is not natural. This is the storage of extra food, and in case you do not have food for long, subcutaneous fat is melt, and it actually solves the problem of food scarcity. So you understand, if you have hard stool, it means you have irregular bowel movement, maybe 2 days later, 5 days later. It may happen that every alternative day you have bowel movement. That's quite natural. You usually have once in a day or sometimes twice in a day. That's quite normal. But at a regular interval, if it is after some days, you have this problem, right? So what's important is that once you have dysentery, if you do something, you won't have dysentery anymore. Suppose once you have had loose motion, what we'll do, as you have had loose motion one time only, immediately you will go and have some water and salt together. Mix salt with water, that is home saline. If you buy from a shop, there may be carbohydrate, there may be sugar. So what's better is just have water and in it some salt. That is going to help you because you have once loose motion. And the other thing is, you go for intermittent fasting. When you have dysentery, once at least, no problem, you go about intermittent fasting. Do not have food maybe once a day or twice a day, and when you have food, do not take sugar, do not have carbohydrates, so they are detrimental, right? When you have food, you will have no sugar, you will have no carbohydrate. Rice is full of carbohydrate, bread is full of carbohydrate, and sugar in tea is also very fatal. So you can have coffee, you can have tea, you can have coffee or green tea, there's no problem. All you have to do is you do not mix milk and sugar. Without milk and sugar, if you have tea, green tea, coffee, then no problem. So in the month of Ramadan, what do? I have intermittent fasting two ways. Intermittent fasting, that is with water. I drink water from 9 to 4 p.m. That is for 7 hours. And dry fasting, you see, this is the month of Ramadan, so I go for dry fasting. So what happens here, 4 p.m. to 6:30, that is 14 and a half hours. So that is a long period of time, almost 21 and a half hours. In the first Ramadan, I was fasting for 22 hours and 15 minutes. So every day I usually have been fasting for over 21 hours. And if you have dysentery, this is a very serious thing. You have to do this when you have dysentery. If you have dysentery once, if you have loose motion once, if you have watery stool, if you do not have food, if you go for intermittent fasting, if you do not have sugar, if you do not have carbohydrate, then problems will go away. So once you have dysentery, loose motion, that is the last. So you can have tea without sugar or milk, right? Green tea, coffee without milk or sugar. In the Sehri, when you are going to fast, start dry fasting, all you have to do is do not have anything. You just drink water, and if you want, you can either have green tea or coffee or tea, but the condition is no sugar, no milk. Milk has a lot of sugar there, that is not good for health, right? So if you do not follow this lifestyle, at least you follow when you have loose motion, when you have diarrhea, when you have dysentery, when you have watery stool. Do this, your problem will solve. If you have constipation, if you have hard stool, if you have irregular bowel movement, all you have to do is to refrain from having sugar or carbohydrate, right? So avoid oily food, burnt oil, do not burn much, right? You avoid fast food, that is full of trans fat, very bad. Subcutaneous fat is not that good. If you have no fat, then that's best. You have to have muscle, but if you have subcutaneous fat, it isn't that much serious, right? But visceral fat, that is from bad oil and bad cholesterol, like that. So eggs can help you a lot. 4 eggs every day I have, and if it is pasteurized, then that would be the best. Trans fat, I said, if you burnt oil and you form it into fat, and that's used for biscuit and other foods so that they last for many days. That's why trans fat is the most dangerous fat. And so once again I say, bile salt is the main thing. If you have excessive bile salt in small intestines, you have dysentery, loose motion, watery stool. If you have very little bile salt in small intestines, then you have constipation or hard stool or irregular bowel movement. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.